The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Variety Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit VoiceAmericaVariety.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit VoiceAmerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Relationship Radio with your host, Jim Duzak. Are you interested in marriage, divorce, midlife dating? Keep it tuned right here for the next hour as Jim and his guest explore some fascinating and important topics. Now, here's your host, Jim Duzak.
Hello, and welcome to Relationship Radio. I'm Jim Duzak. I'm a divorce lawyer and mediator, a columnist for ConnectionsForWomen.com and BoomerLiving.com, and the author of the book Midlife Divorce and the Rebirth of Commitment. At one time, I even owned a dating service. You can learn more about me if you'd like by visiting my website, www.attorneyatlove.com. That's ATTORNEYATLOVE.com. This is not a call-in show, but I do love to hear from listeners. So if you have a question, a comment, or a suggestion, please email me at jim@attorneyatlove.com. I'll do my best to get back to you the same day. My guest today is Ronnie Ann Ryan. Ronnie is a full-time dating coach and workshop leader from Southern Connecticut who works primarily with women over 40. Ronnie herself got married for the first time at age 41, so she knows firsthand the ups and downs of midlife dating. I've been getting Ronnie's monthly Never Too Late online newsletter for the past 2 or 3 years, and I really enjoy reading each issue. I love Ronnie's optimism, enthusiasm, and her imaginative ideas. And I'm sure her clients also love the genuine concern for their problems and challenges that really seems to come through in her newsletters. Ronnie, who has an MBA and a long background in marketing, is the author of the book Manifesting Mr. Right. Her website happens to be manifestingmrright.com. Ronnie, welcome to Relationship Radio.
Thank you, Jim. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you, Ronnie. I would assume that becoming a dating coach is not like other professions. You don't go to medical school or law school or getting a teacher's degree. Now, in your case, you had already gone to school and gotten an MBA. How did you get into the world of dating coaching?
Well, I did go to coaching school.
Oh.
And I did that in 2001, and I decided to start. It was just at a place and time in my marketing career where I thought I would like to just check something else out as well. And when I started the coaching thing, I realized, wow, this would be a great topic to coach on, is dating. And it's so close to my heart because when I woke up on my 40th birthday and I was still single, I was fearful that I was actually never going to find anybody, and that thought kind of depressed me. And then within a few months of my birthday, I decided to take some steps and really reassess what I was doing to see where I was contributing to my singleness. Put myself on a little program, and so when I went to coaching school, I thought, wow, this would really work well for helping other women find the love that they want and deserve.
And you've been doing this for how long now?
7 years.
How many years?
7.
Oh, I see. So you were already married, is that right, at the time you started this?
Yes, exactly. And I'd already been married when I went back to school, and they didn't teach me about dating coaching, but they taught me how to be a coach in general and gave me a lot of great tools.
I see. And you do both one-on-one coaching as well as workshops and other group events?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's talk about each of them. In terms of the individual coaching that you do, let's say on a presumably a one-to-one basis with people, what kinds of, do you have a sort of a standard regimen that you try to either teach or issues you try to deal with, or do you just kind of take the client where you find her?
That's an excellent question, and I really don't have specific program that I take everybody through every segment of it. What I do is I have a quiz, and I assess where they're at with the quiz and how we talk about it. Sometimes the quiz is really just to create conversation. And then I can ascertain what aspect of dating they really would need help with and want some focus on. And then we go from there. So it is very customized to each individual person.
I see. So with some clients, you might have to, depending on what their, dating history has been, you might have to educate them in the basics, right? Especially the basics of the online approach and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm going to call it expectations, because I think a lot of people have expectations that really hinder their process, and I don't know if it comes from the movies or what, but it's the most important thing that I can often help them do is shift their expectations to include a wider range of what's possible.
You must have to be, at times, in fact, often, I would think, pretty diplomatic, because I remember from my days of practicing law that the toughest thing to tell people is what they don't want to hear, and but those things are oftentimes the most important things. Like you might have a client. I would think let's take an example. Let's say a person with an abrasive personality. And you realize that that's maybe one of her problems, but she doesn't realize that she has an abrasive personality. That's pretty tough, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be really tough, and I'm not sure I could make headway in that particular situation, to be honest with you, because that's really asking a person to change. And the kind of things I work on are usually more thought process and understanding how dating works from that perspective rather than shifting their personality so much. So, sometimes I help people with conversation, but a lot of times what I'm doing is getting them to open their hearts and to try to think about that inner chatter and all the criticism they're having about the person that they're meeting, and just open up to get to know them and give them a shot. So it's much more focused on how they're interacting from a dating perspective. I think it would be tough with somebody who is abrasive, because I don't know how I would get them to shift that. They'd have to be really committed.
When I realized that you've had literally thousands of clients, I think I've seen somewhere on your website that you've helped over 1,500 people to date, isn't that right? On an individual basis. Obviously it's hard to generalize, but I would think that an awful lot of people come to you with, let's say, a certain, one of several types of patterns. In other words, a person who, seems to be getting nowhere with online dating, or you get another type of person, maybe she has first dates, but there never seem to be second dates, things like that. Do you see those kind of things? Yeah.
I actually had one client who ran through over 5,000 online profiles and just couldn't find anybody that suited her. And so we did have to have a discussion about how her pickiness was keeping her single. So, that I a lot of times women come to me in two basic camps, although it's so hard to generalize, as you said. One group is that they're so picky they don't want to meet anybody. And the other group is that they don't discern and they'll date anybody, and then they get into trouble because they're with people who aren't really a good match.
So one extreme or the other, more or
less. A lot of extremes are what comes to me,
Yeah, I can just imagine. It's I read something recently that I thought was kind of telling in terms of just attitudes. This is not exactly what you're saying, but it's sort of the same idea. The two extremes. There was on one of these cruise websites, ship cruising. They did a poll of single people, over 1,000 single people who were regular cruisers, people who at least once a year take a cruise. And almost exactly 50-50. One half of them said, cruise ships, they may be great, but you never find romance there. The second group, again, the same demographic, same everything, said, I always meet someone there. And
that's interesting.
It's very interesting because these two groups are probably in some cases on the very same cruise, but they have obviously a totally different attitude. One of those groups goes in thinking, "Oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to meet people." Somebody else says, well, maybe the shore excursions will be good, but there's no way I'm ever going to meet someone.
Yeah, well, you can have a couple things going on there, right? One could be that was just the luck of the draw, and we're on a good cruise where kismet happened, and the other could be that they really weren't open to meeting people, or nobody was really good enough, or that kind of thing, and so that created some resistance.
Well, that's sort of what I was getting at, that so many people have these pre-existing attitudes.
Yes.
That it's just, and that's probably the biggest focus that you have to do, right? In some cases.
Well, Jim, interestingly enough, most people come to me wanting to know where the men are. Okay, but I always back them up and say, it's not about where the guys are, because I could tell you that, but that doesn't mean you'll find them there. Because what we need to start is, who are you when you meet the men? Mm-hmm. So I've kind of broken dating and the topic of dating into 3 segments. The first one is what I call dater's mind, and that's where we're working on who are you when you meet the men, and are you open, and is your heart open, and are you really interested, and do you know what's good for you? The second area would be the action plan, and that's where are the guys, so I can go meet them. Mm-hmm. And the third is what I call protocol, which would, if you look that word up, it means guidelines for behavior. Not that I tell people how to behave, but I do explain, if you do this, it could mean this. If he does this, it could be this. That kind of stuff. Just explaining kind of the unspoken rules of the road. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of confusion out there. I'm
sure that, a lot of what you say is, the people are, I don't know, at times they probably resist you, don't they? That maybe you're challenging some preconceived notions that they have, like when you tell them that there are men out there, and they're saying, "What do you mean? I go out once a week and I never see any men." That kind of thing.
Yeah. I've been lucky, and by the time they come to me, for the most part, they're open to what I say. Sometimes it takes time to sink in. Mm-hmm. I've had a few people who have been extremely resistant, and then that means they're not really going to be coachable, not because there's anything wrong with them, but they're not ready, or they're just not willing to.
Or they're just looking for you to do all the work.
Or they want me to do everything. Yeah, it happens occasionally. But most people, I have attracted the most fantastic clients. Mm-hmm. And it's so rewarding when they follow through, and it's just fabulous.
Yeah, I can imagine. In a couple of seconds, we've got to go to a break, but when we come back, I want to ask you just briefly about your own personal situation, because I know that somewhere on your website you said that if you had met your husband 10 years earlier, you probably wouldn't have married him. And
that's right.
I'm interested in knowing more about that. This is Jim Duzak. We're talking with dating coach Ronnie Ann Ryan, and we'll be right back.
Ask the experts. Call toll-free right now, 1-866-472-5787. And ask our all-star team to answer your question. That's 1-866-472-5787.
Thank you for calling.
VoiceAmerica.com.
Hi, I'm Jim Duzak, host of Voice America's Relationship Radio. I'm the author of a book called Midlife Divorce and the Rebirth of Commitment. It's a book that deals not only with divorce, but with how to enhance your marriage and possibly avoid divorce. Every chapter of the book contains real-world information and advice on issues like sex, money, communication, in-law problems, and the temptation to have an affair. For those thinking of separating or filing for divorce, the book explains how to do it the right way. It also deals with the critical issues of life after divorce, including when to start dating again and how to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. If you visit my website, www.attorneyatlove.com, you can read excerpts from all 17 chapters of the book. If you'd like to order the book, the site has direct links to Amazon.com and the other major online booksellers. And you can use the site to contact me. I'd love to hear from you.
The latest business information is made simple with the Voice America Business Network. The professionals in the business world bring you live talk radio shows featuring an array of business topics. strategies for building wealth, sales and marketing, stock trading, investing, and business technology. Voice America Business hosts are professionals in their fields and bring to the airwaves weekly business discussions that offer up-to-date information, advice, and education. The Voice America Business Network, the bottom line in business talk. Want to have behind-the-scenes access to some of the greatest minds of today? On Shift in Action, we feature leading-edge innovators who are building a more conscious, sustainable, and healthy culture. Host Stephen Dinan offers live shows with evolutionary leaders such as Deepak Chopra, Van Jones, and others who are creating new paradigms for conscious living. You can keep your finger on the pulse of the latest frontier work with our weekly transmission of Inspired Wisdom on Shift in Action, broadcast live every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time on Voice America.
Stimulating talk.
Gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
All the time. The #1 Internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Relationship Radio with your host, Jim Duzak, an inside look at marriage, divorce, and midlife dating. Now, back to Jim Duzak.
Hello again. We're talking today with Ronnie Ann Ryan, a well-known Southern Connecticut dating coach, workshop leader, and author. Ronnie is the author of the book Manifesting Mr. Right, which is also the name of her website, www.manifestingmrright.com. Ronnie, before we went into the break, I kind of teased the audience a little bit. I said that you, the man that you married at age 41, and you're still married to now, I'm happy to say, is apparently not someone you would have married when you were 31. What do you mean by that?
Well, I had a lot of ideas when I was in my 30s about who would be the right kind of guy for me. Mm-hmm. And once I started really dating when I was 40, I had to get more clear on what really mattered to me because I met a lot of guys, but a lot of them obviously weren't going to be right for me, and I had to just get really clear on what's going to work and as I was sifting through my prospects. And so I have an MBA, as you mentioned, and, so I was in business. And my husband is a mechanic, and he did not go to college. Mm-hmm. So in my 30s, I wanted somebody who was just like me, who had an advanced degree. And was
sort of a fast-track kind of guy, exactly. Vicious and all of that, yeah.
And then I had to redefine what was really going to work for me because I had to decide, was his degree important or was it that he had a good heart? Mm-hmm. And you don't always have to make those trade-offs, but sometimes it helps because what's most important is to find somebody that you can communicate with, get along with, enjoy, trust, believe in. And, of all the men I met, he definitely had the best heart going.
Well, that was great that you really took the time to carefully, think about, look inside yourself and analyze your values, because so many people, they just, they don't know what's what I call a wish list to Santa and what's a non-negotiable demand, In other words, what's really important and what is sort of icing on the cake.
Yeah, that's why I have a chapter in my book that says, perfection won't keep you warm at night.
That's a good line. Do you, when you do your one-on-one or group counseling, do you sometimes use your own example in counseling people?
Oh, sure, all the time. Mm-hmm. I use my examples, and then I have some other great examples from some of the clients that I've worked with too.
Mm. I'm wondering, now obviously you with over 1,500 clients that you've helped, you see such a range of people, but I would assume that they would probably all fall into one of three general categories. Either they've never been married, they're divorced, or they're widowed. And I think that covers pretty much all the territory. Do you find, as a general rule, that there are certain differences in attitudes among those three groups? In other words, are the ones who, an over 40 woman who has never been married, does she likely come into you with a different set of problems or challenges than someone who has been divorced?
That's a good question. I think it would depend. If she's a single woman who hasn't dated a lot, she will have a different experience than a woman who might have lived with somebody for a while, even though she wasn't married. So there are degrees of everything. But, yeah, the belief that there isn't anybody good out there could be prevalent, certainly from somebody who is single and somebody who's been divorced.
Yeah.
And you're right, the women who have been widowed, I've worked with some men who've who've lost their wives, too, and they have a harder time because their relationship ended, but not through, fighting and stuff like that. So
yeah, they may not have the bitterness that somebody who's divorced might have, often does have, but then the opposite problem may be they may be idealizing that person, or whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, it can be hard if they want to find a replacement.
Yeah.
That's a problem that I've encountered.
And that could scare off, in terms of, in the case of the widow, it could turn off, or I don't know if turn off is the right, scare off maybe, a potential date who might think, I'll never be able to live up to the image of this, this former husband.
And, that's a good point. And I think what that really is pointing to is that there has to be enough healing after the loss of a spouse, because you don't want to just be talking about the spouse that's passed on. Then you're not getting to know the new person. So that's a sign that you're not really that ready.
Yeah. You, I know I said earlier that the majority of your clients are women 40 and up, but I think you told me once that you represent people, or you counsel people as young as their late 20s, and you've had people well into their 70s. Is that right?
Yeah, I've run the whole gamut from 28 to 78, believe it or not. And I even had a guy call me a few months ago who was 83.
Is that right?
Yeah, I just passed him on to a matchmaker friend of mine who I knew he had some women in their 70s who would love to have met that guy. So that's what I did.
Do you that's an interesting point. Do you sometimes actively work with male clients?
Oh, yes, I have several right now, believe it or not.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I have. Definitely the majority of my clients are women. But I do have some guys who reach out and ask for some assistance.
I'm wondering, you mentioned the word matchmaker. Do your clients, since you represent both men and women, do your clients sometimes expect you to be the matchmaker?
Well, a lot of people, when they first call me, think that's what I do. But then I have to straighten that out and say, no, I don't match anybody up. So
I see.
Yeah, I haven't really done that because you have to have a really good database.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would think so. And it's interesting, again, keeping with the idea of matchmaker, a lot of people nowadays are so sick and tired of the frustrations of what you might call the do-it-yourself approach of online dating, going through all the lists and waiting for other people and all that in many cases they're turning to the traditional kind of matchmakers. Have you ever worked with either matchmakers or people who have found people through matchmakers? Yeah,
I've actually worked with a number of matchmakers, and the thing about matchmakers is I don't know if it's any better than the online dating. It's better in that they're screening people for you, but then it's worse because they're screening people for you.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean they have your taste, even no matter how much you explain what you want. And it also doesn't mean they have those people in their so-called inventory, so they can only do the best with whoever they have in their database based on interpreting what you're looking for.
That's what I was thinking. It's not really like a search firm in the business world where they'll simply go out and try to track down that one person. It's pretty much, as you say, matching up people that already exist in their database. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah,
there are matchmakers who will do that kind of service that you're mentioning, but that's extremely expensive, and usually, that's like the millionaire matchmaker.
Yeah, some of them charge in the $5,000 to $10,000 range.
Well,
doing that,
$20,000 to $30,000. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Getting back to you and your book, Manifesting Mr. Right. What can a reader expect to learn from that book? Without giving away the whole book, because I know you want people to read the whole thing, but what are some of the key issues you deal with there?
Well, the point of the book is to clear up a lot of misconceptions and get you prepared mentally so that you can get out there and meet somebody. And for a lot of people, the book, I think of it as an offer of hope because so many people have given up. I saw a statistic that said from AARP that of all the single people, only 16% do anything to change their status.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think, kind of a low number.
The rest are sort of waiting for lightning to strike?
Or they decided they don't care, which, is completely fair. I mean, I'm not saying everybody needs to be in a relationship. That's a choice.
Right.
So my book offers hope, and also I think of it as a way to, it's like a little guidebook on how to avoid some of those big mistakes that you could make when you're out there dating, and to gain some confidence and to understand who you are and what's going to work for you, and also to rekindle your feminine energy because, I was, having been in the business world, I had to really be tough in the job that I had. And so while I still got my nails done and wore makeup and wore pink or whatever, I had lost some of my feminine charm. I had an edge to me because I needed that edge to make it in the business world. And your business skills do not translate at all in the dating world.
Yeah, I can believe that. I've talked to quite a number of men who go out on first dates, particularly with, well-educated women that they think that they would be attracted to and compatible with, and they find that so often they feel under attack, because the woman is so organized, and it's like she's got this mental list of 99 questions that have to be answered in the first half hour.
And, there's two things going on there. One, I call that interrogation versus conversation.
Right.
And that is just not fun. Because the best thing you could do is just see if you can have a normal conversation and stop trying to check everything off on your list because that's not... Women forget that they're also being interviewed. They forget that it's like a mutual interview. They're not the only hirer
that's
at the table. And that, so that is sometimes such a shame because if they could just loosen up and get to know somebody, that would help. The other thing about that is that men have to compete with us in the workplace, so they don't want to compete with us at home as well. And so they want a woman to be a woman like they want to be the man. And if the woman wants to be the man and the man wants to be the man, it's kind of like ballroom dancing. You need one leader and one follower, and that doesn't mean the woman's a doormat in any way, shape, or form. I'm not a proponent of that or being subservient. But you do have to leave some room for the man to still be the man.
Yeah, I think that's really, really key. And, again, there's nothing incompatible. I think when you go to Europe, whenever you travel there, if you travel there, you see that women there, they just sort of instinctively know that there's nothing fundamentally incompatible between being truly professional and being truly a woman.
Right.
Americans, for some reason, there's this hang-up about that. Unfortunately, we have to take another break, but when we come back, I do want to ask you about something that you've got going. I think I read it on your website. The 100-day challenge, and I'm going to ask you about that when we come back. But we're talking to Ronnie Ann Ryan, dating coach. This is Jim Duzak, and this is Relationship Radio.
Talk, talk, talk. That's all we do is talk. If you'd like to talk, call us toll-free right now at 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787.
That's it.
VoiceAmerica.com.
Hi, I'm Jim Duzak, host of Voice America's Relationship Radio. I'm the author of a book called Midlife Divorce and the Rebirth of Commitment. It's a book that deals not only with divorce, but with how to enhance your marriage and possibly avoid divorce. Every chapter of the book contains real-world information and advice on issues like sex, money, communication, in-law problems, and the temptation to have an affair. For those thinking of separating or filing for divorce, the book explains how to do it the right way. It also deals with the critical issues of life after divorce, including when to start dating again and how to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. If you visit my website, www.attorneyatlove.com, you can read excerpts from all 17 chapters of the book. If you'd like to order the book, the site has direct links to Amazon.com and the other major online booksellers. And you can use the site to contact me. I'd love to hear from you.
Are you ready to grow your business? Listen for the Independent Business Owners Show with your coach, Rick Corrado. This entertaining talk radio program will bring you the tools to help increase your business. You'll learn sales success, time management, lead generation, business development, life balance, and much more. Rick Corrado is here to help you take your business to the next level. Listen for the Independent Business Owners Show, heard live every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Business Network.
The biggest secret about men is that they are far more complicated than we often give them credit for. Join Dr. Chris Blazina as we discover more about the secret lives of men. This is an informative and positive program exploring the various facets of men's lives, from growing up to growing old. The Secret Lives of Men with Dr. Chris Blazina is broadcast live every Tuesday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time on Voice America.
Streaming live, the leader in Internet Talk Radio, VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Relationship Radio with your host, Jim Duzak, an inside look at marriage, divorce, and midlife dating. Now, back to Jim Duzak.
Hello again. We're talking today with Ronnie Ann Ryan, a well-known dating coach, workshop leader, and author of Manifesting Mr. Right, which is the name of her website, www.manifestingmrright.com. And before I ask you the next question, Ronnie, I just want to clarify one thing just for our listeners. For people who are listening who are not from the southern Connecticut or New York City area, do you ever do coaching either by way of telephone or email or things of that nature?
Yes, I have. I've done both. I've had clients from California and Montana and Korea, believe it or not.
Wow.
And
so people can contact you. Can they reach you through your website? Is that right?
Yeah, they can reach me through my website. I do a lot of phone work, and most of my coaching is phone work. And then I also have had a few clients who just wanted to do some touch-base kind of stuff with emailing, so I've done that too.
Good. Why don't you give your phone number in case somebody wants to jot it down?
Oh, sure. 203-877-3777.
Oh, that's an easy one to remember.
Yeah, it's a great number.
Before we went into the break, I mentioned that you've got something going. I don't know if you brought this up in a workshop or something, but you call it the 100-Day Challenge. Meet 50 men in 100 days. That sounds pretty exhausting. I mean, what's that all about?
Well, it came from one of my clients, believe it or not, who told me she had a friend who challenged her to meet a bunch of guys. And the point of it is not to have 50 dates. Mm-hmm. It's to literally just talk to 50 men in 100 days. I personally think it should be 100 men in 100 days, but most women get freaked out over the 50. So I cut it in half. And But the point of it is...
These are people you don't know already.
People you do not know, and they're not necessarily qualified prospects, because you don't know if they're single or looking or anything. Mm-hmm. But just to be having an awareness that men are all around you, and to get some practice in striking up a conversation and flirting. And that's the whole point. It's not that you're going to get 50 dates or that you're going to get any dates, but you are going to get pretty well practiced in striking up a conversation and loosening up and relaxing and getting comfortable with that whole kind of situation where you're talking to strangers and having some good feedback, because 99% of the time men are going to, certainly welcome some woman chatting with them, even if it only ends up being a 3-minute conversation.
Even if the person will never be anything more than just a friend or a polite stranger, you are still learning valuable things about the opposite sex just in interacting with them.
And yourself as well.
Absolutely. That's right. You're finding what makes you get excited in conversation or feel warming up to a subject or whatever it might be. Or you mentioned flirtation. That's a real skill. Do you teach flirtation skills?
Yeah, this past Saturday, I just did a workshop called Flirt School, and it was fun, and we spent 3 hours talking about all different aspects of flirting, mostly nonverbal and mostly mindset, but also some verbal as well. Yeah, it was really fun, and I think what women came away with, my main message is, to just recognize that flirting is really just about being friendly and breaking the ice, and you could make somebody's day as well as your own if you just start talking to people or you just smile at people and acknowledge their existence.
And that's right. And it does not mean, or they don't have to think that it's the sign of a sexual come-on or something like that.
Not at all. It's just a way of moving through life where you're friendly and you're more open and you're more approachable. And you know what? No matter where you are in your life, that can only serve you.
And you can do it 5 or 6 times a night and not feel guilty about it.
That's right.
I mean, it's really true. And again, you should. People could do it. You can really. There's nothing inappropriate as long as you're not making the other person uncomfortable. But in a certain way, you can, in a lighthearted way, you can have a little flirtatious conversation. It may only last 20 seconds with a cashier in a supermarket or a person in a Starbucks store.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you, as a married woman, still find yourself flirting?
I do.
I have always believed, my wife is probably listening to this right now, she listens to most of the shows, and she knows that I enjoy flirting and that there's nothing incompatible, in my opinion anyway, with being a happily married husband or wife and flirting.
Yeah, because I'm not collecting or giving out my phone number. It's got nothing to do with that. I'm just being friendly, and it's creative, it's spontaneous, and it makes you feel alive.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you're spreading the word. And you said that, was there quite a number of women who showed up for this?
Yeah, I had 20 women, which for me was a wonderful crowd. Mm-hmm. And we just had the best time talking about all different aspects of flirting. But I taught them all kinds of nonverbal cues. And, that basic flirting boils down to a little eye contact and a smile and just being friendly and approachable.
Yeah. You get a lot of feedback, whether they're from workshop participants or one-on-one clients, about, gee, I'm glad you told me that, Ronnie, it worked. I mean, do you get that kind of thing?
I do. For people who actually apply the things that I've talked about, mm-hmm. I get a lot of responses about how, I can't believe it was that easy. You told me what to do, and I did it, and wow, I had such a great experience. And they're usually kind of surprised that it works and that it was as easy as it was.
Hmm. I'm really. That must be the real payoff in your business. It's just knowing that somebody gets it. And that they tried it and it worked, and that they remember that it came from you.
Yeah, it's so exciting for me when I find out that somebody found somebody, or they met somebody, or they got married, or they just start getting out there. I mean, to me, a success can also be somebody who's been hiding away and not dating for a while, who is willing to get back out there and risk trying it again. And I'm so excited for those people, because a lot of times they're kind of pining away, really wanting a relationship, but they're hanging back because they're afraid of being vulnerable.
Hmm. So you've had quite a few success stories, then, it would seem.
Yeah, I've had my share.
Yeah, that's great. In addition to your book and your various workshops that you do, I know you have a series of audio programs. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
I saw one of them on your website that said 5 things that drive men away. Now, I don't want you to give out all 5 of your secrets, because then nobody will buy the program. But can you tell me what one of those things might be?
Oh, yeah.
Provocative title.
Yeah, women don't realize it, but interrogation, I'll give you 2. We talked about one, interrogation versus conversation.
Yep.
And another one is talking about any of the following topics on the first date, or even during the emailing or the phone calls that happen prior to meeting somebody. So talking about your ex, your divorce, how busy you are,
yep.
How hard it is to find somebody to date, or your children.
Mm.
Now, which doesn't mean you can't say anything about your kids, but some people go on and on and on.
And you know what you see all the time, and it's very tough to tell women, to break the news to women that this is a turnoff to men. women will say in their personal ads or, online dating profiles, my kids mean the world to me. I have the most wonderful 12-year-old, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure what they mean to say is, I love my kids and you will too. But that's not the message that's coming across.
Well, my personal feeling is you shouldn't even talk about your kids in your profile because your profile is about you.
That's right.
And yes, your kids come with you. They are a package deal, but he needs to get to know you first, and you need to get to know him. So I say when you bring your kids or your ex on your date with you, then you've got a third wheel or more. And, a date is for two people. So I say stick to each other and see if you can go from there.
Yeah, and I think you're right, too, about not discussing the ex-husband, because even if you think that it was an amicable breakup, it's almost guaranteed that something negative will come out.
Yeah, and why not show yourself in the best light? I mean, your profile online is advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And,
that's right.
When you advertise something, you don't shine a spotlight on all the things that are broken about it.
That's right.
You highlight what's great. So you don't want to show yourself in a bad light and, highlight your bad experiences. You'll get to that.
Yeah, you don't have to necessarily say all the bad things about yourself. That's right.
Right, just start with the good stuff and see if you want to get to know each other. And then your stories will come out, of course, but not on the first night.
That's right.
I actually had a male client who complained that he felt like he was becoming a therapist because he had dated so many women who just went on and on and on. He was a kind soul, and I guess he would listen to them, and, he couldn't take it anymore.
And he reaches the point, and he says, and I'm sitting here, and I'm paying for all this.
Yeah.
I'm not only their unpaid therapist, I'm paying them, at least for the lunch or whatever it is. So I think you told me at one point that you're working on a second book. Is that right?
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas going on, but one of them is called Please Drop the Ball, and other counterintuitive proven dating advice that really works. And the whole idea there is that women keep thinking they got to pick up the ball and run with it. They got to make something happen. They got to prod and prompt and take steps to get the ball rolling. Mm. And I say just drop that ball in his court and see if he picks it up. Because that's the only way you'll ever know if he's interested.
I like that. Any other tips without revealing the whole book that you're likely to have in that book?
It's going to be a lot about feminine energy and understanding roles of dating. And I consider dating to be just the first 4 to 8 dates approximately. Once you know you have a date on Saturday night, then you're into the first stage of relationship, and that's like a whole other ball game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the initial dating phase.
You're past that casual phase.
Yeah, where you're getting to know each other, where, it's so helpful to really find a way to be Ginger Rogers in those high-heeled shoes. She always says, I did whatever Fred did, but I had to do it backwards and in heels.
Right. So, Ronnie, I could talk to you all afternoon, but unfortunately we have to go to one final break. I want to thank our guest, dating coach and author Ronnie Ann Ryan, for being with us today. Ronnie's book is Manifesting Mr. Right. Their website is manifestingmrright.com. But when we come back in 2 minutes, I'll tell you how to prevent that attractive stranger from slipping away. I'm Jim Duzak, and this is Relationship Radio. Thanks again, Ronnie.
Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome.
Have you ever thought about having your own internet talk show? Well, if you said yes, then click About Us. Then click Be a Host to get more information. Or just call Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417.
Say that again?
480-294-6417. VoiceAmerica.com.
Hi, I'm Jim Duzak, host of Voice America's Relationship Radio. I'm the author of a book called Midlife Divorce and the Rebirth of Commitment. It's a book that deals not only with divorce, but with how to enhance your marriage and possibly avoid divorce. Every chapter of the book contains real-world information and advice on issues like sex, money, communication, in-law problems, and the temptation to have an affair. For those thinking of separating or filing for divorce, the book explains how to do it the right way. It also deals with the critical issues of life after divorce, including when to start dating again and how to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. If you visit my website, www.attorneyatlove.com, you can read excerpts from all 17 chapters of the book. If you'd like to order the book, the site has direct links to Amazon.com and the other major online booksellers. And you can use the site to contact me. I'd love to hear from you.
Total career success. What does it mean to you? Voice America presents a radio program dedicated to help you achieve your career goal. Even in times of economic uncertainty, you can achieve your financial goals. Whether you're a college grad, new in the working environment, or a top-level executive, you will benefit from the practical and proven advice on job search and career advancement. Join Ken and Cheryl Dawson every Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern for Total Career Success on Voice America.
Wake up with a unique daily show. Listen for Mitchell John in the morning. Mitchell will bring you news, sports, and stock news from yesterday. You'll hear interviews from high-profile figures from the world of sports, entertainment, politics, and authors. Mitchell will talk to people throughout America. This is a show that throws right down the center. It's fun, information, and yes, even a little bit of music. Catch Mitchell John in the morning at 6 a.m. Pacific Time, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Voice America, and Thursdays on the Voice America Business Network.
The Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Relationship Radio with your host, Jim Duzak, an inside look at marriage, divorce, and midlife dating. Now, back to Jim Duzak.
Welcome back to Relationship Radio. I mentioned earlier that in addition to being an author and a talk show host, I'm a lawyer. Since lawyers always love to plead their case, I call the final segment of each show my closing argument. What I try to do in the closing argument is to make my case, so to speak, on a particular relationship issue and offer some advice that you might be able to use right now. The issue I'll be discussing today is missed connections and how to prevent them. Midlife dating is, to say the least, challenging. You spend so many hours each week working, commuting, dealing with your kids or your elderly parents, doing the food shopping and the other errands, that you have little or no time to pursue romantic adventures. Yes, you might sign up for an online dating service, but before long, you've allowed things to drift. You're too busy to even check your inbox. At work, everyone who's even remotely attractive is married. You feel too old or too insecure to be heading out to the bars on Friday and Saturday nights. You seem to be waiting for lightning to strike, and sometimes it actually does, sort of. You see the person of your dreams in the produce aisle of the supermarket, or at an adjacent table at Starbucks, or in the checkout line at Costco. You want to say something, but you just can't. You're instinctively afraid of looking foolish or being rejected. So you let the moment pass. But 10 minutes later, you're angry at yourself for not doing something. And the next day, desperate for some way to find that special person you let slip away, you put an ad in the missed connections category in Craigslist. You know, the ones that say, yesterday at Walgreens, I was the dark-haired woman in the vitamin aisle. You helped me find the zinc supplements I was looking for. I wish we could have talked more. Contact me if you're the one. There are a million of them on Craigslist if you take a look at them. Well, Craigslist ads are free, so I suppose it never hurts to give it a shot. But the chance of finding a particular person that way are about 1 in 10,000. You'd be better off just camping out in the vitamin aisle hoping he'll show up again. But even then, your shyness might cause you to once again lose your nerve. The truth is, it is hard to approach a stranger or to turn a neutral conversation into something more personal. Aside from shyness and the fear of rejection, we may be short of time or in a distracted mood or aware of how sloppily we're dressed or be otherwise unprepared to initiate a little flirtation. It's a common problem. But fortunately, there's a fairly easy solution, and that is have some cards printed. Not business cards. You don't want to divulge too much information to a stranger, no matter how nice he or she appears, but simply cards with your name and either your email address or your phone number. I personally prefer email addresses because you can easily set up a new email account just for this purpose. If you don't use this email address for any other purpose, no one can do a Google search on the address and possibly learn identifying information about you. So if you're feeling overwhelmingly attracted to the person behind you in the checkout line, but also overwhelmingly nervous and tongue-tied, just hand one of your cards to the person as you're walking out and say, "Hey, I'm in a rush, but I'd love to talk to you someday. Here's my email address." If you don't hear back, you at least won't be kicking yourself about the one that got away. And you won't be posting needle-in-a-haystack messages on Craigslist. You know, the person may be married, engaged, or just not interested. Whatever it may be, at least you gave it your best shot. But if you do hear from the person, you'll be on top of the world. You'll be proud of yourself for making it happen, and your new friend will be impressed with your initiative, your creativity, and your self-confidence. So give it a try. You've got nothing to lose but your regrets. You know, in talking about Craigslist, I'm well aware that they're in the news a lot this week for mostly for the wrong reasons. You've probably read about that murder case in Boston of the allegedly the medical student who murdered a prostitute that he met on Craigslist, and he met her at a hotel, and there have been similar Craigslist crimes, so to speak, over the last few months. But it remains a very popular site for everything from selling a car or a sofa to finding a date for Saturday night. And I guess I've always been fascinated by those missed connections sections that I alluded to because they all tell a story. Unfortunately, they tell usually a sad story. So really, there's nothing worse than the frustration of, you know, kicking yourself and saying, why didn't I do something at the time? And I really do believe that having little business-sized cards, you know, not business cards, but, you know, just cards with your name on it and the email address, and, you know, you give it your best shot. I want to mention a couple of things before we finish up. I first want to say that if you're listening to this show live, by tomorrow night, today's show will be in the Voice America archives, along with all of the previous relationship radio shows. So if you want to listen to today's show again, or listen to any of the earlier shows that you might have missed, just go to www.voiceamerica.com and enter my name, Jim Duzak, that's D-U-Z-A-K, in the search field, and you'll be taken right to it. And each show in the archives can be downloaded in MP3 form for those of you who prefer to listen that way. A couple of other things I want to mention is that if you or anyone you know is in a book club, particularly a club that reads nonfiction books, I want to extend a special offer. If your club chooses my book, Midlife Divorce and the Rebirth of Commitment, as the book of the month, so to speak, I'll be happy to appear by telephone at your meeting and speak to the members either individually or by speakerphone. And if your club meets anywhere in southern Arizona, where I live, I'll be happy to appear in person. As I like to say, you know, will Dr. Phil or Dr. Laura do that, or anyone else that you know of? I don't think so. Anyway, just email me. The address again is jim@attorneyatlove.com, ATTORNEYATLOVE.com, jim@attorneyatlove.com, and we'll work out all the details. I want to mention that next Friday, May 1st, our guest will be Kara O. That's O-H. Kara is a highly respected relationship author, workshop leader, and one-on-one counselor. Her 3 books, Men Made Easy, Women Made Easy, and Marriage Made Easy, have all been bestsellers, and she's working on a 4th book, Flirting Made Easy. We talked a little about flirting tonight with Ronnie Ann Ryan, so we're going to talk more about it, to some extent anyway, next week. I've been a big admirer of Kara's for many years, and I finally got to talk to her last week on the phone, and I guarantee you will love what she has to say, and you'll come away with a lot of great information and advice. So that's next Friday, May 1st, here on Relationship Radio. And as I mentioned before, you can go back and hear some of the past shows, and I have to tell you, and I'm not complimenting myself here for anything other than just choosing good guests, but the past shows have been very, very good. Just last week we had a woman named Nancy Kalish, who is like the expert on reuniting with lost lovers. She was a fascinating guest. We've had other guests such as Kelly McDaniel, who back on April 3rd, who wrote a book on love and sex addictions. It was really an interesting subject. We had a pastoral counselor, in other words, a minister who does marriage counseling by the name of Mitch Temple. He also has a book out, a very good book. He appeared on April 10th on Good Friday. I thought it was an appropriate time to have him on. And again, we've had a total of 8 shows now. But anyway, I hope you'll come back next week, May 1st, with to hear the conversation with Kara O. Until then, have a great weekend and spread some love around. I'm Jim Duzak. Goodbye for now.
Thanks again for joining us this week on Relationship Radio with Jim Duzak. Please join us again next Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time on Voice America. Have a great weekend.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Variety Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit VoiceAmericaVariety.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader.